Good evening, fellow seekers of happiness. So yesterday I recommended that you at least look into the Briggs-Myers Test. And I spelt it wrongly. The correct spelling was in the description, M-Y-E-R-E-S. No, not E-S. Can't even do it now. M-Y-E-R-S, Briggs-Myers. And then you were recommended some follow-up procedures to find out the kind of work that you might be suited to do. Now, I do recognize that it's fairly easy to say and hard to do if you end up with looking at a list of professions which would require a heck of a lot of money to gain a qualification. For example, let's pick either law or medicine. Okay, so I'm picking those deliberately because they require a heck of a lot of money to go and get those degrees. And or nursing, even nursing school, you've got to pay a lot of money to become a nurse now, which to me is nuts because people are always going to be sick. What country does not need nurses? You would think that there'd be some way of subsidizing nursing students, if only because we need them. And a lot of people who would make excellent nurses are not going to be able to afford the upfront costs. I mean, what you could do is say, okay, if you successfully complete the course, then we will significantly reduce the amount of loan that you have to repay. But if you are just messing around and you do 1 or 2 years and then you decide you're going to drop out, then okay, you've got to pay that money. Anyway, it does mean that some of the people looking after you are actually pretty well off people. They don't actually really necessarily need to be there. They have definitely chosen to be there caring for you, and you should definitely treat them with respect for that reason alone, if not because their medical knowledge is that equivalent of certain doctors up until about the 1950s and 60s, maybe even later than that. They know a heck of a lot. Anyway, let's get to the point. How could you find similar sort of work? So you can't afford to be a doctor, you can't afford to be a lawyer, and there are certain types of professions which cost a lot less to qualify for. In the case of medicine, I'm assuming that your Briggs-Myers profile would be saying that you are the kind of person who wants to heal in some ways. Well, there are other areas that you can help people heal, which don't necessarily mean you've got to go and get a doctor's degree. Spend 7 years studying and the rest of your life. You could look into such areas as chiropractic. You could look into hypnotherapy. You could, if you are minded to help people with their emotional problems, look into counseling. All these things have shortages, and they perform very useful functions. Being a massager, what is the word? It used to be masseur and masseurs, but you're not supposed to use feminine and masculine nouns anymore. So people who give massages, that's therapeutic. You're going to end up exhausted. Your hands, you're going to need strong hands, but it's helping people. And there are lots of acupuncture, dietitian, nutritionist. All these things have health benefits for the people that you would be dealing with, and the cost of entry in time and study and in monetary costs is a lot lower than going off to medical school. Now, in the terms of legals, I don't know much about the legality, but I do know that there are organisations in England, such as Which magazine and the Citizens Advice Bureau, where I don't believe you have to have a law degree. It may help with certain things, but there are other people who act as first line of inquiry, and then they direct you to the correct people. You're helping people with legal problems, and there are also what are they called? There's a certain I should have done my research. There's a certain branch of the legal profession to deal with things such as divorce and house conveyancing, which you don't have to be a full-blown lawyer for. The legal society didn't like this being made not decriminalized, delegalized, whatever it was. I've been doing this for over 2 months. My brain's starting to turn to mush a little bit. So, de-unionized almost. There used to be this kind of union thing that only professionals, legal professionals who studied could do these mundane tasks, but they weren't doing it themselves. They were getting either their junior assistants, or in very many cases the secretary, to do a lot of the legwork for them, and then they were just looking over it, rubber stamping it, and charging you, I think it's about £270 per hour now, which would be equivalent of $350 an hour. Yeah, for something that the secretary did, who they are paying probably the going rate, but I would imagine that that's nowhere near the same rate that they're getting. And in the case of their junior assistants, the people just out of legal college, two people I know who did that straight out of law school. One did it for free. She wanted to be a barrister. She had to do it for free for a couple of years. And then the other one, who went into a solicitor, she did it for a heck of a lot less than she could have been earning in McDonald's. So that was before we had a minimum wage in Britain. So there are ways in to help people along these in these areas, in law and in the medical field, but without getting the full-blown qualifications. But you can still feel that you're being helpful, you're helping people to heal, you're helping people with their legal problems, and it would be a way for you to get in if money is a problem, and certainly if time is a problem. If you haven't got 7 years to dedicate to a medical degree, then I know that the counselling part exams in England take just 2 years, and you can do them in an evening class, and so you'd be able to hold down your job, go to evening school, and get the qualifications, and I do know that being a counsellor pays rather well. Okay, 8 minutes and 29. I thought this was going to be a very short video, but clearly not. So those are two extreme examples. Whatever it is you choose, or whatever it is that Briggs-Myers recommends for you, there's probably going to be a very high cost and high investment of time job, but there will be alternatives which will be equally satisfying for somebody of the temperament that you have been given, which would be a little easier to get into. Probably you could get a lot of knowledge studying online, and you may even be able to set up independently without having an office or anything like that, from home, doing coaching, that kind of thing. All right, and 9 minutes and 22 seconds, I will say good night, and here's to your greater happiness. And if you've enjoyed this or found it useful, please like and subscribe.